morning, good evening, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to another financial modeling session brought to you by UrBizEdge. So for today's session, we're having a topic called data modeling accounting, creating an income statement. This session is being brought to you by Obeng Boateng. So this session was brought to you by collaboration between UrBizEdge and Financial Modeling Institution. So for some of you that might be interested in writing the Financial Modeling Institution exam, you can also go to the website. You can check the website out and get more information about them. So UrBizEdge. So most of you already know we're also a training company here in Lagos, Nigeria. So UrBizEdge is a registered Microsoft Excel consulting, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analysis, and enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. We also specialize in helping companies and high-value professionals be on top of their business data. So as I already said, we're also a training company. So this is the calendar of our upcoming training. So on the 6th to 9th of June, we'll be having the financial modeling and financial planning training here in Lagos. Also on the 11th to 12th of June, we'll be having the advanced financial modeler, and also some of you that are planning writing the CFM exam in future. So you will have a mock exam coming up very soon. So I'll give a brief description of our special guest, Bernard Boateng. Okay, so Bernard is also a Microsoft MVP, that's Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. He's also a Microsoft Certified Trainer, a financial modeler, and also a data analyst with over 10 years working experience. He's also the founder of Finex Skill Hub, which is a very popular YouTube channel. They train on Excel and other Excel tools. Also, he also runs a finance project, also does pro bono for students, for training outreaches and other Microsoft projects. He also provides consulting services for SMEs, that's startup company and other financial management process. He has a very high active audience on LinkedIn with over 17,000. So no further ado, I'll hand over the session to Bernard. So Bernard, over to you. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay, Temi. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So thanks for the introduction, and I'm happy to be here. I was just doing a check and I realized it's exactly 2 years ago I made my last appearance on this office hour, which was 14 June 2020. So I am at home and I'm happy to be here. Yes, so so I'm going to share my screen and then we'll start shortly. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes, you can see your screen.
Great. So our agenda today is very simple, and I'm sure it's going to offer a lot of learning to our accounting and finance professionals. Our goal is to take this simple journal. So this is a table. So this records your date of transaction. You have a division. So division can be a slicer or any column you want to use to analyze your data product. Okay. Then you have your description, which is the details of the transaction. And then here you have your double entry. So you have your debit and credit, and you have your amount. So this is the table we are going to call journal, and that's going to be our primary input source. Then we are going to go and use our chart of accounts. So this is our chart of accounts, which is very common to most accounting systems. Now, the basic idea is this. We've sorted the account code in a way that we want our financial statements to appear. So we have our account codes here, and you realize that the balance sheet items start and is followed by our income statement lines. We also have some columns here that gives us further details on our chart of accounts. So whether it's an income statement line or a balance sheet line is here. And then we have our categories, which gives the lines for our financial statements. So we have assets, cost of goods sold, and so on. And then we have another column that shows us whether it's a debit or credit, also here. And then we have our account group for group reporting. So this is the agenda. We are going to use just these two tables to create a monthly income statement. I must say that you can do all the three statements with just these two tables, but this is a series and hopefully we'll meet again and then do the other financial statement with the balance sheet and the cash flow. But for this afternoon, we are going to concentrate on how to build this interactive And when I say interactive, it means you can use a slicer on your financials. So this is our slicer by division and showing us our income statement, cost of sales, and everything over a period of time. So you can do this over a long period of time. This is showing us 24 months. Okay, so it's still linked to your journal. So if you make any changes there, you refresh, you get this. And then we are going to convert this monthly income statement into an annual. So we are going to use cube formulas to also make this still interactive and then get an annual version of this. Of course, the learning is that if you add a new year, you can easily extend the formulas and you still have this interactive financial statement. So we call this data modeling accounting, and it's going to show you how you can use Excel's Power Query, Power Pivots, the data model, pivot tables, cube functions, and slices to achieve this. So let me go to our agenda. And the way my mind works, I like to put everything in a schema so that people can follow what we are going to do here. So we are going to start off with a journal and chart of accounts, those two tables that you saw. They are going to be our primary inputs. So we'll take these two tables and then shape it. So we are going to transform these two tables using Excel's Power Query. Now, when we go into the Power Query, we are going to use Power Query to create the table that is going to help us analyze our numbers by date. So this is going to be a very dynamic calendar table, which expands when new data is added, okay, so that it matches our date and timelines. Now, with these three tables, so essentially our journal is going to be our fact table recording our accounting activities, and then our chart of accounts and our calendar table will be our dimension table, helping us analyze our numbers by the account code and by the date. So from this point, we'll move on to Power Pivot. So in a Power Pivot, we'll use our data model. So our data model will help us combine these three tables, okay, into one source. We'll connect these three tables using the common relationships, and then we'll exit out using a pivot table. So at the pivot table stage, we can create the monthly income statement and link it to our slices, okay? But typical of accountants, we want to shape it the way we want. So we'll take the pivot table and then put in our subtotals, insert rows and everything, and then still make it possible to control the numbers with our slices. And then we use cube functions to create this. So we'll convert our pivot table into cube functions for our monthly statement, and then create the annual one from scratch using cube functions. So when we combine all these tools together, then we'll have this dynamic income statement. And of course, it's not flat. It means that if you update our journal, all the changes are going to flow through, and then you can get the updates in your income statement. So fairly, this is what we are going to cover this afternoon. And you can follow along. I'm going to go as slowly as I can. I know there's a mix of proficiency levels here. So if I speak above you or I speak below you, we'll converge at a certain point so that everybody can take something home. Okay, so I'm going to start off with our two tables. And as I already mentioned, this green table is named journal. Okay, and then this one is named chart of accounts. It's always good to have your data in a table. So the first step we are going to go through is to load this into Power Query. So I'll come to data, standing in this table, and I'm going to load this into Power Query. I'm starting off with a chart of accounts. So Power Query is the space we are going to use to transform and shape our data. So it comes here, the table comes here as a query. The first thing you need to do is to make sure your data type is correct. So in the top left corner, you see the format here. This is a number, is fine. This is text. This is text. So you can go through and just be sure you have everything sorted. There are two tables, and you realize that the first step that this executed was that it went into the current workbook and then fetched this table called chart of accounts. The second table is the journal. So I'm going to take advantage of this M code, okay, and then bring in the second table without stepping out of my Power Query. So I'll do Control A, Control C to copy this, okay, and then launch a new query. So I'll go to New Source, Other Sources, and then I'll launch a blank query. So it's one neat way to launch a new query without stepping out. So I'll paste this here, and if you know how M code works, you see that it's case sensitive. So if you look here, the name of the table is in the red. So I'm going to change this chart of accounts, okay, and then name it journal. Okay, so I'll name this journal and then I'll press enter. Okay, so when this query pops up, I have the columns of my journal. I have my date, I have my division and all. As I mentioned, anytime you bring in a query, you are supposed to make sure the data type is correct. So this, we are going to convert to a date because we're going to need this as a date dimension. And then we have our division here, text is fine. And then this is also fine. And then we go to our double entry columns. We see that it's also text, which is also good. And then we have our amount here. So let's name this journal. And then we have our two tables here. Now, in proper database structure or management, you realize that for us to make anything meaningful out of this table, debit and credit should not be sitting in two separate columns. It will be good to have one column that shows us whether the entry is a debit or a credit. So we are going to take these two columns, okay, and then on pivot so that they go into one column and then show us whether it's a debit or a credit. So I'm going to right click these two, okay, and I'm going to on pivot. So when I on pivot, I have this as an attribute. So by attribute, it means the column will show you whether what you have there is a debit or credit. Okay, and then you have your account here. Okay, so if you are okay with trial balance layouts, you see that now every entry is now a debit and a credit. Now we are going to create another column which is going to be used to monitor our trial balance. So it's more like a control column. So we are going to make our credits negative and then we'll make our debits positive. In this way, if you make an entry, an error in your entry, you will know how to correct this. So adding a new column, we'll go to add column, okay, and then we'll create custom column. We are going to use an if statement. So the if statement basically says that if the entry here is a debit, okay, then return a positive amount. But if it is a credit, then multiply by -1. So I'm going to invoke this custom column. Okay, and then it pops up. So I'm going to name this TB amount. And then we write our if statement. Okay, so if square bracket, I call this column debit or credit is equal to DR. Okay, then return amount. Okay, else multiply amount by -1. Okay, so this is going to convert it into positive and negative for our debit and credit, and it's called TB amount. So I'm going to click OK, and I have my TB amount. You can use this later when you are doing other financials. As I said, it's important you change the type, okay, to match what you want to use it for. Okay, so we have our TB amount here, and then we also have our original absolute amount over here. Now, the last thing we are going to do on this is we want to take away transactions. It's a very granular column at this point, and we are not going to need it in our aggregate function activity. So I'm going to remove this. Okay, so we have our journal ready. So as I said, there are three tables we need. The journal recording our accounting activities. Our chart of accounts is here, but we also need a calendar table. So the concept of the calendar table is to give you a date dimension so that you can analyze your numbers, let's say by month, quarter, year, and all that. So to do that, we are going to create a new query from scratch. So I'll go to new query, other sources, okay, and a blank query. So we are going to use another M code to create a dynamic calendar table. And we are going to use this function, number from, Okay, so number from will start a series. Okay, the series is going to start from the least date we have in there and then go all the way to the maximum date that we have in there. So I'm going to open my brackets, and the function I'm going to use is list.min. So list.min will return the least number, okay, or the minimum number in a list. And then I'll go to the table that contains my dates, which is journal. Okay, I'll bring my square bracket, and the column that contains my date is dates. Okay, so this is what we are going to use to extract the least number. Now I'm going to close this and then close the number from. So this is going to give us the beginning date. Okay, now I'm going to copy this. So if you know that this is giving us the least, then if I paste and I change the min to max, it means it will also give me the latest date, which is the highest date. But to create a range, I'm going to bring 2 dots, okay, and then I'll paste this. So instead of list.min, I'm going to do list.max. Okay, and because I want a list, right after the equal sign, I'll bring curly brackets. Okay, and then I'll press enter. So this is going to now generate this dynamic date, which is going to agree with our journal. So if you add on, this date will expand and give you the date dimension you need. It's a list, so I need to go to tables and convert it into a table that I want. So I'll click OK, and this is not formatted, so I'm going to name this date. Okay, and then format this as a date. You know, dates are essentially numbers starting from 1st January 1900. So I'm going to convert this into a date, and then I have 1st January increasing by 1 day all to the end of my date range. So this is date, and I'm going to use this as my root. Let me first name this calendar. So from this date root, I'm going to extract year, I'm going to extract month, and then I'll extract quarter. So I'll select the date and then go to add column. Hi, Tommy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry about the
So I'm
noise.
going
I'm
to,
trying to mute some people.
I understand. So I'll take this column as my roots date column, and then I'm going to extract all the attributes we need in our date calculation. So in Power Query, you can do this by standing in add column. So you stand here, and then we are going to extract year from this point. Okay. So this gives us all the years from this point. And then we take our date again, come here, and then extract our month. So when you choose month, it gives you the month value, but you can come back here and then extract the month name. So I have my name of month here, right? For our purpose, and sometimes you use space well, we try and truncate this. So we want to extract just the first 3 letters, and I'm going to select the column, move to transform, right? And then extract the first 3 characters here. So I'm going to extract first 3 characters, and then I'll click OK. So it means that you can analyze your numbers, your income statement by any of these attributes you've drawn in your calendar table. Now, if you saw what we did in the income statement, it started the income statement from January 2019. It was a 2-year data. So January 2019 all the way to December 2020. Okay. Now, when you do month-year labeling, you are essentially working with text. And anytime you draw that label, it's going to sort it alphabetically. So what we need to do is to make a column or an index that will help us sort this chronologically. So that index is going to be a year-month index. So we'll create something like 2019-001 for January 2019, go all the way down, and then we'll use this column to sort our dates. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to come in here and then go to add column, okay, and then create a custom column. So this custom column, I'm going to name it year month. Okay, it's an index. Okay, so this year month is going to be the year that I have there. multiplied by 10,000, okay, to create a placeholder, and then I'll add my month to it. Okay, so this is year, month, and I'll click OK. So when I click OK, you realize that I've now created this series that would make sure that January 2019 comes before any other month, day, or month year in December in 2020, I must say. So here, I'm going to convert this into a whole number. We are going to use this to sort. Now let's create our label. The label we are going to use is going to be month and year. So I'll take this month, I'll hold it first, okay, and then I'll hold control and then select my year. The order matters, okay, and then under add column, I'll come to merge columns, okay, and I'm going to use a space as a separator, okay, and then name this month year. This is going to be our label, and then I'll click OK. So we've created an index called year month and a label called month year. I'll have a final walk through my data types to be sure the format is okay. So with these three tables, we are good to go. We can now go into our data model and then connect these tables, and they are now going to help us create our financial statement. So I'll come to home, okay, come to close and load to. Okay, so the first stage is ETL. We extract, we transform, and then reload. So here, instead of dumping it as a table, I'll hold it as a connection for now, and then add this to the data model, and then I'll click OK. Okay, so all that we've done is to ensure that we have our tables in one space. Okay, so if you need the numbers, you call the journal. If you need accounts, you go to the chart of accounts. You need a date, you go to your calendar. So where do we find the data model? If you are in data, okay, you can find the data or Power Pivot here, this lemon icon here, or you can also use the dedicated Power Pivot tab to also access this. So I'll go to Power Pivot and then I'll go to Manage. And then in here, I see all my three tables. So I have my chart of accounts, I have my journal, I have my calendar. This is the data view. So I'll go to my diagram view, and here I get a visual display of all my three tables. Now, I mentioned that this is the fact table. Fact table records activities or transactions, and then we describe every calculation here by the dimensions. Okay, so to create what we call a star schema, I'm going to place this fact table down, okay, and then have my dimensions here. So I look out for common columns. So between calendar and journal, I have date going into date. So I'll just connect this like that. And then between my chart of accounts and then my journal, I'm also going to connect these two. Okay. So now we can create any analysis from these three tables that has come together. And from this point, you can exit your data model. Okay, so I'm going to exit out my data model and we'll start creating our calculations. Now, when we are going to create our calculations, there are two key measures that we need. We need something that would aggregate this reporting amount, okay, and then we also need something that would aggregate the TB amount that we are going to use to control. Okay, so what we are going to do now is to start a new worksheet, and I'm going to name this monthly income statement. Okay, but before we do anything, we create our measures. Okay, so measures are simply calculations that you do from your data model. And we'll go to our Power Pivot. Okay, we come to measures and then we'll launch a new measure. So my measure is going to reside in my journal, which is my fact table. So the name of this measure is going to be reporting value. Okay, so that's my measure, and it's a simple sum. So I'll do sum, okay, of my journal, and then I'll go and take journal amount. So I'm just aggregating this so I can use it as absolute numbers in my income statement. The format is going to be a number. I'll use 1,000 separator. You can check if your formula is correct. Okay, and then you click OK. So this is saved. Then let's create one for our TB report as well. So we come same here, new measure, still in journal, and then let's call this TB value. Okay, so here we'll go into our sum journal, then what we negated and made a positive out of the TB amount is what we are going to aggregate. So this is 1000 separated 2 decimal place. I'll check my formula. Everything is okay here. So with these two measures, I can create all my financial statements from the data model. Now, we are going to start off with the pivot table. But normally in financial modeling, we lay out our worksheet well before we even do any calculations. So standing in column A, I'll use the shortcut Alt-HOW. Okay, so that will make me minimize the column width, okay, to 2. And then this is going to be my label headers, Alt-HOW 20, okay, to expand this. And then in my C, where I have my main labels, I'm going to do Alt-HOW 50. Okay, so this is what we are going to use. Now, at this point, you can insert your pivot table. So I'll come down here, go to my insert pivot table from the data model, because that is where all our 3 tables are. So I'll insert my data model in this existing worksheet. So this is my pivot table, and I'm about to create my financials from these 3, okay, with the cylinders against it. Okay, so it's going to be my accounts on the row section, my dates in the columns, and then my reporting values in the middle. So let's go to my chart of accounts, and I'm going to drop the accounts into my row section. So it gives me this sorted alphabetically. Then I will come to my calendar, and then I'm going to drop my month year. So my month year is also going in here, sorted alphabetically. But we are going to change this because we don't need the dates sorted alphabetically. We made provision for a column that will help us sort that. And then also in our account, we made provision with the account code. We sorted it out intentionally so that our revenues will come before our cost of sales and all that. So if it happens like this, what you need to do is to go back into your Power Pivot. Okay, go back to your manage, and then you correct this. So the first thing we are going to do is highlight our account code, okay, and then go to sort by column, and then we'll sort this account code, sorry, our account names, okay, by account code. Okay, so I'll click OK. And this has been sorted. We'll see it when we get out. And then I'll come to my calendar. I'll take my month year, and then this I'm going to sort by my year month, right? So I'll sort this by my year month, and then I'll click OK. Okay, so when I close this, okay, you realize that the correction has been made. We now have January 2019 going all the way to December 2020 for our 24 month. Okay, and then we have our account names also coming with the balance sheet items on top, followed by our income statement. Now, as I mentioned, we can create all the financial statements from here, but for this purpose, we are concentrating on the income statement. So when I bring back my pivot table, okay, in my field list, there is a column in my chart of accounts, which is IS or BS, that shows me whether the line is an income statement or a balance sheet item. So I'm going to drop this into my filter section. Okay, and then I'm going to use this to filter out only the income statement lines. Okay, so I'll come into my filter, open this up. Okay, and then I'm going to select only the income statement, and then I click OK. So at this point, our income statement is shaping up. Our revenues are on top, cost of sales follows, our expenses follow, and then we have our interest and finance costs going down like that. Now, we can at this point create a trial balance. Okay, so if I come to my pivot table field list, okay, and I go to my journal, over here, we have two measures. Okay, one is the reporting value, the absolute numbers, and then the other is the trial balance, the negative and positive. So I'm going to drag this to values. Okay, so when I do this, you realize that if I include, okay, so let me select all. So if I do this, okay, and then I come to the end of my my list, you see that if I add the balance sheet items, this is my full trial balance on a monthly basis. Okay, so you can use the TB values to get your trial balance. Okay, but if you don't want the trial balance and you want your income statement, this filter is going to help you filter out the balance sheet item. Okay, and then we'll click OK from this point. So we are not going to use the TB value. We are rather going to use the reporting value because we want our income statement to be positive numbers. So I'm going to drop this one here. And at this point, you can add any filter or any slicer that you want to include in your analysis. As I said, it can be division, it can be product, it can be anything that your users are interested in. The good thing is that when we calculate our Q formulas, these slicers are still going to be active. So I'll come into my pivot table, analyze, and then insert a slicer. And then this slicer is going to be on division. Okay, so division is in my journal. So I'll select this and then I'll click OK. So let's test this. So this is working. And with slicers, of course, you can change it. Okay, I'll make this a flat 1x4. Okay, so that it fits into our design. So I'm going to push this here for now. We'll come back later and then format this properly. So let me insert some more rules, Alt-IR. Okay, so I have something like this. And if it helps, I'm going to select this Control-Shift-R, Control Backspace, and I'm going to paint this and create a banner. So I'm going to create a banner that is going to help me label this. So this income statement from January 2019 to December 2020. Okay. So we have our income statement. Now, you can leave it at this point if you're okay with pivot tables, but we want our subtotals and all other calculations flexible and then also linked to our slicers. So at this point, what we are going to do is to insert or convert this into cube formulas. Because we pass through the data model, it is easy, okay, to convert this into cube formulas. So when you go to analyze under OLAP tools, you have this option to convert this whole calculation into formulas. So I'll do this. I can also add the report filters, which is here. So I can add that as well and then convert. So by doing this, you've not really lost anything. This is still connected to your slicers. It's still connected to your table. So if I click, okay, it updates, right? But this allows me to insert rows and columns and then shape it the way that I want. Okay, so as an example, Alt-IR, F4, F4. Okay, so I'm going to lay out my revenue. So Alt-IR, Alt-IC to insert a new column. Let me just, so this is going to be my revenue header. Okay. Now, when you convert to Q formulas, anything that doesn't have a formula behind, okay, you can let it go. So I'm going to delete this month here, and then this is also going to go. And let me explain how Q formulas work. So they are essentially calculations. So an example is I'm calculating this number for January 2019 and the revenue product. So if I double click, essentially my measure, okay, my measure is reporting value, which is the red cell here. And I am drilling down, okay, by this label revenue product, okay, and then also by my date, which is January 2019. and then the filter is also income statement. So when all these come together, they calculate this value at this point. We call these cube members. Okay, so they are crucial in calculating this. So for this layout, I'm going to cut our cube members and then arrange them nicely here, okay, because we need them to calculate our numbers. So this is going to be our cube value calculation for revenue. Now, the reason we like cube formulas is that you can make any change to any line. So you realize that in this calculation, it renders months that has no numbers as blank strings. Okay, so we can correct this and our slicers will still be active. So to convert the whole of this, the spaces into zeros, what I can do is I can use the n function. So the n function, a very simple function. Okay, so what it does is that it just converts these empty spaces into zeros for us. So I'm going to highlight the whole of this, Control-Shift-R. So that I don't overlap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide these columns. Okay, so I did that, Control-Shift-R. Okay, Control-Shift, close bracket. Okay, to highlight, to delete these columns or hide them. So what we did was we put in an N. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this down. So Control D. It's helpful if we can convert all these into accounting format. So I'm going to highlight the whole of these. Okay, the shortcut is Alt HK. Okay, so Alt HK will convert these into accounting format. And now I can go ahead and do my subtotals. So this is going to be my total revenue. I'm building this, Control-Shift-R, Alt-HBO to put in a borderline. These shortcuts are useful, especially in financial modeling. If you are doing the AFM exam, it comes in very handy. Okay, so Control-Shift-R, Control backspace, Alt equal to. So that is my total revenue. Okay, then I'll put in my header for direct cost. So this is my direct cost. So my direct cost ends here. Alt-IR F4 to give me more space. So let me calculate my total direct cost. Holding this, Control B, Control-Shift-R, Control backspace, Alt-HBO. Okay, I'll stand here, Alt equal to, and then I have my total direct cost. From this point, I can calculate my gross profit. Okay, so my gross profit, I can highlight the whole of this range equal to, select my total revenue minus my total direct cost, Control Enter, okay, to calculate my gross profit. And then let me calculate my gross profit margin. Now I must say that this layout we are doing is the same layout we are going to use for our annual. So if you lay it out, you take that annual presentation also into consideration. So our gross profit is going to be, our gross profit margin is going to be gross profit divided by total revenue, Control Enter, Control Shift percentage to convert this into percentage. Okay, so I have that. Okay, now let's move to our expenses. So this is going to be our expenses, and then I'll come in here. It ends here, so Alt-IR F4 to create some space. Okay, so I'll create my total expenses over here. Bolding this, Control-Shift-R. Okay, so let me do the Alt-HBO first. So Alt-HBO for the line. Okay, and then Alt equal to for this. So this is going to be my total expenses. So from my total expenses, I can calculate my EBITDA. So I have my EBITDA here. And then I'll highlight this. This is going to be equal to my gross profit minus my total expenses. Okay, and I'll build in this. Then I have my depreciation and amortization. So here, I'll take off my depreciation and amortization and my finance costs. So this is going to be my finance costs. Okay, so let's calculate our EBIT from this point. So this is going to be equal to this EBITDA minus that, control enter, and I have something like this. Okay, so now what I said earlier about correcting any line with the Q formulas, you see we have interest income here, which we have to reverse the sign, okay, to give us our net interest. So what we are going to do is we just negate this, okay, and then Control Shift R, Control R to copy this right, okay, and then I'm going to do Alt HBO. So Alt HBO, let me take off this grand total. So my net interest, okay, this is going to be a sum of this, and I have something like this. Okay, so this, at this point, I can now calculate my net income before tax. If this was a full model, I'll put my assumption for tax here. So let me just put 25% here. So my net income is going to be my EBIT, okay, minus my net interest. And then I have something like this. So I'll control. Okay, so now that you have some negative numbers, we can put in conditional formatting to show us where we have some red lines. So I can highlight the whole of this, come to conditional formatting, and then highlight those that are less than 0. Okay, so this will show us the months that we didn't perform well. Okay, so now let's calculate our tax. So our tax is at 25%. I'm using Ghana's case. Okay, so we are going to use a logic expression. We call it a Boolean. So what we are going to say is that if this number, okay, is greater than 0, okay, then multiply this number by 25%. I'm going to log this. Okay, so if it is more than 0, that is where the tax is applied. But if not, you get 0. So you realize that at this point, we didn't get any tax. It's something you can use in place of the if statement. Okay, so our net income, okay, then is going to be, let me put in my Alt HBO. So our net income is then going to be this minus that. Okay, and then I'll take this all the way to the end. So this is one neat way to calculate or create your financials. Okay, of course, regarding the formatting, we can always format this, but I'll come back to that later. So let me just bold in this. Okay, take off my grid lines, Alt WVG. Okay, and then I can also underline this, Alt HBO. Now, the good thing about this is, as I said, the slicers are still controlling whatever that we have here. Okay, if you update your journal or you change your chart of accounts, this is in place. Okay, if there are new lines, you can also include them and then control down to copy it down or right if there are new years. So this is our monthly income statement. Now, from this point, we can create our annual income statement. So what we are going to do is just duplicate this monthly income statement that we've created, okay, and then use cube calculations to finish up our annual. So to duplicate this worksheet, I'm going to click inside, hold Control, and then drag it to the right. Okay, so when I drag it to the right, I still have the same data set, Alt HOR to rename this worksheet. So I have this as annual, and I'll come here and make this income statement 2019 to 2020. My slicer is still here. Now, I'm going to delete all that we did. So I'm going to highlight the whole of this. Okay, Control minus. And we are going to recalculate this, but it's going to be a very simple calculation. My columns are still hidden. So I'll do Control A, Alt HOUL, okay, to open up my columns, and Alt IC F4, okay, to add new columns. So this is going to be 2019, 2020. These are going to be my year indicators, dimensions, I must say. So from this point, we are going to analyze all the calculations that we've done, right? So remember, the value we are going to create here is a value that is going to be analyzed by the label, okay? And it's also going to be drilled down by the year. And it's going to be also drilled down by this filter. So with cube calculations, you take your measure and then you can use any of these dimensions to drill down the value. It's essentially what we did earlier, okay, using pivot tables. So I'm going to start off using cube value. So equal to cube value. So cube value calculates our, or aggregates our main calculation. So this is going to come from our data model. Okay, the measure I'm going to use here is the reporting value. So measures dot reporting value. Okay, now you have this. What do you want to see this by? So first, I want to see this by the label here, revenue products. Now I'm selecting this because this is already a cube member. Okay, so it's easier for us to maintain it this way. Okay, so this is going to be my revenue or my account label. And I also want to see this by year. See, this is 2019. So I'm going to invoke the calendar table. So this is my calendar table. I'll go in and then fetch year. Okay, so from the year, I'll bring my square bracket, bring my double quote, ampersand, and then join it with this. Okay, so we are doing this so that if I even change the year, okay, the formulas will update. Okay, then I'll bring my ampersand, bring a double quote, close my square bracket, and then close this off. So this is a dynamic reference. This way, any year can analyze the report value that we have here. So we've analyzed the report value, which is our income statement number, by account label and also by year. Don't leave out the slicer. If you have slicers, you can also bring them in. So I can bring in a slicer, okay, to make sure that if I click on East or any division, it also updates this. Okay, so we are going to be copying this right and down, and here we need to lock this appropriately. So C18, I'll step in here, F4, F4, F4. I'm going to lock this on the column side, okay, and then I'll come here and then lock this also on the row level so that it doesn't move as I go down. Okay, so I'll enter and I'm going to control right, okay, and delete this, alt equal to sum this. Okay, so if you do financial modeling, you realize that the moment you get one shape and it applies to your subsequent layouts, you can take advantage of that and then copy and paste formulas. So in all the labels that we have here, we are going to use this calculation. So I'm going to highlight this set, okay, Control C, and then carefully select where this applies. So this is going to be applied here. I'll hold Control, select this, and then go all the way up to this point for my direct cost. Okay, let me just start this over. I need to delete these numbers. I can actually override it, so let me try it again. So Control C, okay, highlight this, press Control, highlight the whole of this, okay, press Control, highlight the, okay, let me try this again. Sometimes just a little patience, so highlight the whole of this, press Control, highlights the whole of this, press Control, highlights the whole of this. Control Alt V F. Okay, so Control Alt V brings paste special, and then F would allow you to paste this as formulas. Okay, so this is our calculation, our annual calculations. Of course, we are going to reconcile this with the monthly, so we have something to help us check whether our calculation is correct. So this is fine, and this is reporting the total sum of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the formula to the left, a very unusual way, but it's possible in financial modeling. Alt HBO to put in my line, and then I'll hold this, Alt EIL. Okay, so I have this going to the left, and then I'll do same for this one, Alt HBO. Highlight this total, take it here, Alt EIL to copy this across. Okay, and then I have my calculation for expenses, same way, Alt HBO, and then I'll take this, Alt EIL to copy this right, and then my depreciation, okay, is going to, let me also take this and copy this down here, Control Alt VF, okay, and then I have this, okay, so Alt HBO, and then Alt EIL, okay, to have this, and then I'll take my interest expense, should have copied this and then paste this here, Control Alt VF, and then I'll have Alt equal to, let me just delete this. Alt HBO. Okay, now remember, we need to negate this, the interest income. So I'll have to negate this, okay, and then copy this to the right, Alt HK for my accounting format, okay, and then just check this total is correct, and then I can take this Alt EIL, okay, and then finally my net, this is Alt, my income before tax, okay, so let me just calculate this. So my net income before tax is going to be my EBITDA minus this one. Okay, and then my tax calculation is already here. So I'll take this Alt EIL, and then finally I can copy this left. So Alt EIL. So this is our annual statement, and you realize that it comes dynamic. Let's test our slices to be sure that this works. Okay, so when I click this, you realize that this is still slicing. Okay, so let me just clear this, and I realize this is also giving me the full account. So let's check and be sure that our annual statement agrees with our monthly. So we closed with 968595807, and then here, let's go all the way down. We have 968958007. Now, as I said, we can go on with the balance sheet. We can also create our cash flow from this point. But for what is important in this approach is that every input that you place here, okay, so if I add on any data, dates along these columns, and then I refresh, it goes through the Power Query data model, pivot table, cube formulas, and then it updates, and then it gives me the new lines that I want. So the trick is, if you have new years, okay, all you need to do is to come in here, Alt IC, okay, and then insert a new year here. You copy the formulas to the right, okay, and then it will pick this. And then based on the new data that you've put in your journal, this will easily update. Okay, same with if you have a new line in your chart of accounts, the same way you can come insert it, and then when it updates, that is also a neat way to get your numbers. So just to recap, the goal has been to show you what you can do with just a simple table here, which is the journal. Okay, if you have your chart of accounts, these two tables, you can take it to Power Query, transform it, add a calendar table, and then you can also go to the data model, connect it using the relationships, and then exit out using the pivot table to create your monthly income statement. Okay, and then if you want, you can come to your annual and then create your annual financial statement from here. So as I said, this is a series, and hopefully we'll meet again and we'll go through how from this point we can create our balance sheet and then our cash flow. So I'd like to pause at this point and see if there are any questions. I'll be happy to take them. Thank you.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Bennett, that was very nice. I learned one or two from the Power Query part. Okay, so someone is asking, Vivian is asking, once you have transformed and you have taken your data to your Power Pivot table, can you still use the cube formula on the slicers?
Okay, so if I understand the question, once you
Okay.
put in the slicer as an input in your cube formula, okay,
Yeah.
the slicers would respond. You can have as many slicers as you want. Okay, so I don't know if that's the question.
Okay. Sorry, my network is also bad here, so it rained early today.
It's still raining here.
Okay, so okay, so it's actually glitching a little bit. And also, can you material for this training, can it be made available?
Yes. So I'm going to make available the
Okay.
stats worksheet. I would also include the finished worksheet as well, so that you can compare your numbers as you practice.
Okay. And okay, let me just tell what I actually learned was when you join those the month and year together. Usually when I do create calendar on Power Query for that month here, I usually take it back to DAX. So I write my DAX formula and just create months here. But I never thought about it that way. But that was nice. So Bennett, you've been having a lot of good comments so far. Everyone is just saying awesome. So remember the question I asked at the end of the session. Okay, can you tell us how you started your whole financial modeling journey and what advice you have for people just starting out in the financial modeling field?
Well, I would ask you to ask Michael. He knows all about how I started.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, we started this journey together. So AFM Financial Modeling Institute, that's the global certification in financial modeling. So we thought it was a very good body that is helping people learn financial modeling. So the task for me was to write and pass the exam before I could teach. So by God's grace, we did the exam and then we passed. But I must say that learning to write that exam for the first time, I went through a lot of learning. So all these shortcuts that you see was possible because of that. And we have this fantastic team at Finder Skills Hub, a team of about 10 guys. So we share ideas, and their support also made this learning easier. So we have a very vibrant group here in Ghana, Financial Modeling Group, and we are still working on it. So from AFM, that is where I started. I say I'm not an accountant, but I help accountants. You don't need to be an accountant to be a good financial modeler. In fact, we say that the best financial modelers are engineers. Michael, like this, has no accounting background.
Yeah.
So everybody's invited. You can be a financial modeler, okay? As long as you handle money, you need financial modeling. So that's been the journey so far. We are still pushing, and hopefully we'll grow this community in Ghana.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Michael also said you should try and make like a section on shortcuts because you did a lot of keyboard shortcuts.
No
Actually, it was a
problem.
lot.
Yeah. It comes
So
with the
what
practice.
advice?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So what advice do you have for people just starting out in the whole financial modeling journey? Do you have any advice for people?
Okay, so for starters, you can get the concept. So we have something called Accounting 101, basically to understand how the three statements link up. So you can use Excel to model that. So once you get that concept, the rest is hands-on practice. Hands-on practice. Unlike other subjects that you read and understand, financial modeling requires a lot of practice. Okay, so I remember before the exam, every morning was my routine to at least practice an hour before I go out. Okay, so get the concept, get how the accounting linkages work. That's all the accounting you need to know. Okay, and then from that point on, you have to practice case studies. Okay, so that's the advice that I have. There are a lot of resources available. Okay, so you can always reach out. If you're in Nigeria, UrBizEdge. If you're in Ghana, find the Skills Hub. Come along and then let's journey together on this.
Wow, wow, wow. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I think I might later take the financial modeling pathway, but I don't know yet though.
You should.
I'm still in the Excel. I am, yeah, Michael already said so. So like I also want to say thank you very much. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Yeah, you were really awesome. I didn't say you finished everything within an hour. I was like, wow. So thank you very, very much. So we'll be having another section coming up by 4 p.m., which is an Excel section. So I'll put the link down below. So we're having sentiment analysis without a code. So you're going to be building sentiment analysis. That's our next section on Excel. So Bernard, I want to say thank you very, very much for honoring our invitation, and also have a lovely weekend ahead. And so have a lovely week ahead. Sorry, have a lovely week ahead. And awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. So thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will never forget the control EIL because I'm going to be
Thank
using it a
you
lot.
and bye.
Uh,
That's
bye.
fine.